Okay. As promised, I said I was going to, once I got the cars running, I was going to walk through how I go about doing some tuning. So that's what we're going to do here. Um, so what I have up is this screen, which shows three different graphs. First graph is showing RPM, manifold air pressure, throttle position, and air fuel ratio. Second graph is showing coolant temperature, the idle duty cycle, the VE, which is the fueling, and spark advance. And the third trace is showing the warm-up correction to the fuel and EGO correction. Right now, we're not going to be worried about EGO correction. So basically, what I'm seeing here in this top graph here is the key on event and a start event. So basically, I'm at key on at here. Now the engine is starting to turn over. It's cranking, cranking, cranking. And if you see down here in the lower right hand, you'll see that the crank condition is yes. So as long as that stays yes, the ECU thinks that the car is indeed attempting to start, and it's in crank. It sets everything according to what I have set up in crank cranking state. And if I go to the start idle and cranking startup settings, these are some of the things that are set to occur during cranking. We won't go into all of that in detail, but bottom line is that I'm in a cranking position. Now, if you watch down here, you'll watch, and as soon as the RPMs kick up a little bit, it changes from a crank to a run position. So now it says, okay, the engine is running. Now I get out of cranking state and I go into run state. This is after start enrichment, warm up enrichment, and I'm in a run state. So these two are adding some fuel based on some other parameters. And you'll see this line jumped up, this white line here is the warm-up correction. So you see that jump up, and basically what that's saying is that it's adding 16% additional fuel over what is called for from the VE table, and that's the warm-up correction. You'll get your warm-up, this is your after start enrichment table, and this is your where's the warm-up? There it is, warm-up enrichment. So these curves determine how much warm-up enrichment happens and how much after start enrichment happens. And then there's a third table here that is the after start enrichment taper. So this curve says how much to add, and this curve says how much to add it, or how long to add it for. Both of these are based on the coolant temperature. So the colder it is, the more fuel is added, and it's added for longer. So that's what's controlling this curve here. So anyway, now we're in a run condition. Unfortunately, the RPMs start to drop. I try and correct it by adding some throttle, but it's not enough, so the engine dies. Now, if you look at this yellow trace up here in the top, you'll see that it's doing some funky things. You know, it's right now it's set at 10 air-fuel ratio, which is very rich. As it progresses, you'll see that it jumps up to 14.6, which is near stoichiometric. And then later you see it drop back down to 9 and then jump up to 15 or 16, essentially 16. What's happening, and let me shrink that time scale down. What's happening is that from key on all the way through we get to here, all of this time, which is about just under 30 seconds, the conditioner for the wideband sensor, wideband O2 sensor, is going through its startup cycle. So these first 30 seconds, it's not really sending true air-fuel ratio numbers. It's basically these are false readings. So because these air-fuel ratio numbers are so weird, the system is doing weird things in response, which is why it died there. So what I need to do is wait for the O2 sensor conditioner to go through its cycle before attempting a startup. Otherwise, I'm going to get this kind of strangeness happening. But nevertheless, go back here, engine dies. Then I do another restart still while it's in its O2 sensor calibration mode, but this time I add throttle earlier, which I shouldn't have to do, but I add throttle earlier to keep the engine running. And finally, it gets to a state where, I'm at, 3,200 RPM just to keep the thing alive. And then I taper off to try and see if it's going to run and add a little bit more throttle. And then finally I get to more or less a running state out here. And as you can see now, the air-fuel ratio starts to give values that are somewhat realistic. So basically, that's the start sequence. As you see, once the engine settles down, that the air-fuel ratio stays more or less, here it's pretty much in a stable situation. So the air-fuel ratio is more or less at 13 or so air-fuel ratio. A little on the rich side for an idle situation. Probably could add fuel. And how I would add fuel is I'd go to the VE table and in these cells here, I would add, or actually I take away fuel. I take away a little bit of fuel so that, you know, if I take away fuel, it's going to go leaner is higher numbers. And so get that up closer to 14 or 15 air fuel ratio by reducing these numbers in these cells here, somewhere in this vicinity, probably all along here. Okay, so that's an idle condition. Now, that's pretty much what's going on here. So now we get into a state where we're actually running, where the car is actually running, and we're driving. So one thing that you'll notice is that here I'm running through a couple of the gears. So, you know, first gear, second gear, third gear. One thing that you'll notice is that here, you know, pretty much a steady RPM increase, so pretty even slope here, constant throttle more or less, constant manifold pressure more or less, and you see that in this place that's full lean. That's as lean as my conditioner goes, 15.9, 16 air fuel ratio. So the bottom line is that this is too lean, you know, in this RPM range. It's too lean. So let's look back at the fuel map. So here I'm up in this area here. So let's highlight, you know, the cells that are involved in that. So as I start up that RPM ramp, I'm passing through these cells, pretty steady, passing through these cells. Now I'm passing into a different section, and then I'm lifting for the shift. So pretty much this area. So this is telling me that I'm too lean. I need to add fuel in this area. So let's see what's happening in the next gear. So I'm going through the gear, fairly representative increase, or fairly flat, or not flat, but steady increase in the RPMs. I'm in a similar area as I was in the previous gear. Now you see the trace is escaping down into here, and that's because my throttle, I'm lifting the throttle a little bit here towards the end, and the RPMs are now they're staying kind of constant. So that means I'm dropping here. So I can elect to change in this cell, but I might just leave it alone for now. Let's see what happens as I go through more gears. So I'm going to go through another set of walking through the gears. Here I'm back at idle again, probably sitting at a stoplight or sitting at a red light or something like that. So idle, idle, idle. Probably a red light. Now I'm getting ready to run through some more gears. Let's expand that out. So first gear, I'm lean, and I'm in the same range of cells here. the next gear, I'm still lean and still in the same range of cells. Next gear, same thing, kind of getting to the edge there because I'm at a higher RPM. And then this gear, I'm going higher still, RPMs. So I'm up in 4,000 RPM, almost 4,100 RPM. So basically that's telling me that this whole range could stand to add fuel. Okay. So I'm almost at the end of this trace. Let's see if there's anything more that happens that'll tell me anything more or different. You know, once again, in the same area, I'm lean. Same area, still lean. This is relatively constant, and I'm still lean. You see it's toward the upper edge here that I'm at, so I probably could stand to increase this box that I'm going to add fuel to one more row higher. One thing that you'll notice is that my manifold air pressure won't exceed 100 kPa. Because I am running without the turbo connected, so it's normally aspirated all throughout this whole exercise here. Is normally aspirated, and 100 kPa is by default sea level air pressure at standard temperature, blah blah blah. So, you know, I should never see my manifold air pressure exceed 100 kPa. And as you see here, manifold air pressure is the red trace, and you'll see that 98.6 is the highest that it's ever gotten in this particular sample of data. So that's just an FYI there. So basically what I'm trying to do is find out a range of cells where I need to at least increase fuel in order to stop this lean condition, these plateaus in the air-fuel ratio. And one good way to evaluate how much to add is go back to this EGO correction. And basically, EGO correction is attempting to try and have the car hit a particular air-fuel ratio in a similar set of cells as you see here. So let me pull this AFR table. So basically this is saying that pretty much in the range of cells that I'm looking at, that I'm trying to hit a particular AFR, that I'm trying to get, you know, I have it set at stoichiometric, which is 14.7 pounds of air per pound of fuel, or 14.7 units of air to one unit of fuel, 14.7. It's just the ratio between the two units. But anyway, the bottom line is I'm telling the system that I'm trying to hit, you know, 14.7 in this range, you know, a little bit richer here and a little bit richer still up here. And what EGO correction is attempting to try and do is say, if I'm not at the target air fuel ratio, add X amount percent additional. So, excuse me. So that's saying in this condition where I'm at a lean state, EGO correction is saying, okay, at this point, add, 1.3 or 1.3% more fuel, and it's trying to increasingly add more fuel, all while it's in this rich or in this lean state, up to where it gets to about 14 or 4% additional. Then when I drop out of the lean state, it goes back to 100%. And here it starts to climb while it's in a rich condition, or a lean condition. I keep saying rich, lean condition. And here it's trying to add fuel again while it's in a lean condition. So anytime it sees the air fuel ratio deviate from what I have set in the AFR table, anytime I see it deviate from what's in the AFR table, then add a percentage of fuel. So what I can do is, in these states where it is in those particular cells, what I can do is take that percentage and multiply it by what's in the VE table. So basically I'm doing a manual correction based on the EGO correction in order to bring that down. Now, there's a limit to the amount of correction that's allowed. And so what I do is I'll add that up to whatever that limit is, run the car again, and then come back again to see if it is still lean or not. And if the EGO correction is still going up to 110%, then that means I need to add more fuel. And I keep doing that in an iterative process until these lean conditions go away and the EGO correction stays at or around 100% all the time. I mean, it'll never be perfect, but the point is to get it as close as possible so that I don't add a lot of fuel with EGO correction, and that I have, I'm hitting the AFR target that I want to hit. So that's the process. So the next step is to use all of this that I talked about, make the adjustment to the fuel table, go out, collect more data, and see what the results are, and then keep repeating that until I get and see the kind of AFRs that I want to see. And that'll get me as close as I can get on the street. The downside of street tuning is that you can't get it exact. You can't hit the targets that you're maybe trying to hit because you have no control over the conditions, meaning that you're in traffic, you have to obey the laws and flow with the traffic, so you can't stay at a particular cell in order to dial it in exactly. Now, if you were doing this on a dyno, what you would do is, I would run it up to 2,000 RPM. I would hit, whatever is necessary in order to keep, myself more or less in one or two cells. See what the air fuel ratio is, adjust the fuel in real time, and then go on to the next cell, or a set of cells, and just walk myself across this whole graph and get the fueling as close as I can get in any one of these cells or sets of cells. That's the best and most accurate way to do this. But without being able to do this on a dyno, you have no control over the conditions. So it's hit or miss. Sometimes you might hit something that you're trying to hit, and most of the time you're going to miss it or go sail right through something. So you can only get close. You can't get it exactly right. And that is even more so when you get up here, in higher RPM, higher boost levels. These are high speed conditions, high stress conditions, and you're not going to be able to hit those exactly. If you take this to a track or something, you might get close, but even that, then you're going to be in the middle of traffic, even though you might be at higher speeds. You might be in the middle of something, or you will be in the middle of something, and so you just can't hit these exactly. So that's the difference between street tuning and tuning on a dyno. You get better results on the dyno, more exact results on the dyno. You can get close on the street, but you'll never be as good as you can get on the dyno. So this is the first run on the street. This is as good as it is at this point. Like I said, I'm not running any boost, so everything's going to be below this line, at or below this line. Boost will come later. Once I get the more miles on this new engine, the boost will come later. But right now, I'm just trying to get this dialed in. My objectives are twofold: get rid of these lean spots. Get rid of these lean spots, and get my startup sequence dialed in better. Once I get beyond that, then I'm going to start worrying about acceleration enrichment and all that other kind of good stuff. That's more complicated and a little bit more touchy. And then of course there's the boost settings. So that's going to be another whole adventure. So one step at a time. And that's where I am at this particular point in time. So we'll see what happens.